Do you think Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers made it out okay? Yes or no? That's all I want.
The
I want.
question. That is the question. Okay. One word answer. Do I think they made it or not?
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you are listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we're joined by a very special guest. His career has spanned over 6 decades in the creative arts. You've seen him on projects such as Seinfeld, Friends, Breaking Bad, and Escape from Alcatraz, among many. He is truly one of the finest actors in the industry today. On the show today, the very talented Larry Hankin. How are you, Larry?
I'm fine, Talal. How are you?
I'm doing well. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show today, Larry. We truly appreciate it. How have you been over the last 2 years, Larry? We're living in this ever
Wow.
changing world, and especially for someone in the creative arts like yourself. What did the last 2 years look like for you?
Sequestered
Yeah.
here in this room, in this apartment. I've been writing for the last 2 years. I figured I might as well use the time to my advantage. So I wrote two screenplays, and I just finished an autobiography. So I'm set for the marketplace now. Let's get rid of this COVID thing and let's get moving.
Oh,
So
I
that's what
hear
I'm
you
doing.
definitely, especially with we were hoping that potentially this might be the year where we start returning to somewhat of a normal, but with things just piling up again,
I
who
think,
knows, right?
well, I think we should just erase the word normal from our vocabulary. That's over.
Yeah, and especially in an industry that's been so affected, like the creative arts, film,
Yeah.
cinema. Here's hoping that this year we can get back and again, of course, with all the proper safety precautions, keeping each other safe, and doing our part as global citizens to ease the restrictions and do our part to reduce the spread of this virus. Larry, before we deep dive into your amazing work, I am so fascinated by your story. As someone who grew up watching your work in so many different mediums, your range and incredible talent always stood out to me. Where does this all begin for you? What were some of your early influences that made you want to be in the creative arts?
I just wanted to get out of the house and away from my parents. That's all. Just escape is the name of the game. So I grew up in a very unproductive household, a very um, nobody got along. So I just wanted to get out. No input. No. Nobody liked movies. I had father, mom, and a sister. And my parents didn't go to movies, didn't go to shows, didn't watch television. Well, if they did watch television, it was just commercials and sitcoms and no critical thinking. No critical thinking. A lot of no nos. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. So I went to college to please my parents. I got a degree in industrial design. I always wanted to be a painter. Those are my paintings up there. Uh, so lately, that's what I've been doing, painting. So when I graduated college, my best friend was Carl Gottlieb, who was later, many years later, to write Jaws and many other movies. So we became best friends in Syracuse, and I didn't want to go to Detroit to design cars at a very big salary. I had gone to Detroit to visit from the school. Syracuse sent me to Detroit with the top students. I was like an A-minus student of industrial design. But I was fooled. I thought design meant art. So I saw Syracuse University.
Yeah.
They wanted me to go into a profession. And I saw Syracuse University had an industrial design department. And I thought, design, that's art. So I thought it was like the
Right, right.
nexus of art and industry. That's what no, it's just designing machines and cars and tools and motors. And so I had no idea. So I went to Detroit. I saw what was going on and I said, no, it is not for me. This is crazy. This is, yeah. So when I got back to Syracuse, I was talking to Carl and I said, where are you going? Because we were graduating at the same time. So I said, where are you going, Carl? And he said, I'm going to Greenwich Village. I'm going to become a writer. And he asked me where I was going. And I said, I don't know, man. They want me to go to Detroit, and I don't know. But Greenwich Village sounds pretty cool. And he said, what are you going to do there? There's no industrial design in Greenwich Village. And I said, no, I'm going to go there and just see what's happening. So that's what we did. We moved in together. I think the rent was like, I don't know, $150 a month or less. It was a 5-floor walk up and three floors. There was a lot of stairs, I remember.
Hmm.
No elevator. There was no elevator at all. And we were in Greenwich Village, and I starved for about a couple of months, and then I sweeping up on in the bar, cleaning up the duck boards behind the bar, cleaning up the peanut shells and all that crap. And I did that for 2 weeks. But the reason that I stayed for 2 weeks was because it was a bar and grill. So I had access because they locked me in. I was working from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Hmm.
After last call, I would clean up the bar. And then the chef would come in at 6 in the morning and he would open the door. They locked me in. I never got that. I never understood, if the place
Yeah.
catches on
Mhm.
fire, well, I'll just crash through the front window. That's all I can do. So he let me out, but what I would do while I was there is I'd clean up from say 2:30 until 5:30, and then I would ransack the refrigerator from the last half hour. And I always wore a raincoat to work. The Marx Brothers? You know the Marx,
I'm not 100%
Groucho
sure off the top of my
Marx,
head. Okay, yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
Groucho Marx. Well, Harpo Marx always wore a raincoat and he always stole spoons and stuff. He was a thief. And so he wore a
Yeah.
raincoat. So that's what I did. I always wore a raincoat to work because Harpo Marx did. So I could put rashers of bacon be in my belt behind my back and very small cans of sausages in my pockets. Anything that didn't leave a bulge, I would go
Hmm.
home. But after 2 weeks, I thought, no, they're going to start counting cans in
Yeah,
the
I bet.
in the
In
cubby
their
the cupboard.
inventory, and yeah, yeah.
So I quit. But I had been watching stand up open mic nights before going to work for 2 weeks because it was in Greenwich Village and the bar was in Greenwich Village and we were living in Greenwich Village. So it was all walking distance. So I would, go to watch the open mic nights on Sunday. So it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then I said, well, I won funniest in high school 2 years in a row. I can do that stuff. 3 minutes, you get up, you say your jokes, and then you get off. So that's what I did. That's how I started in show business. Just getting up when I quit the bar, I would just open and pass the hat,
Hmm.
for the 3 minutes. And I was good at it. And I was bad in the beginning. In other words, I started from zero. I would just get up. I didn't know how to write jokes. I mean, I could write and I knew what a joke was and I could read a joke, but I didn't know, I would do the familiarity and then the setup and then the punchline. But when I got the familiarity, the setup, and then the punchline, I could never get the punchline that
Nah.
was funny enough that would make a joke to put on stage. Uh, but if I got up and talked, just my day, I just watched and I got up and talked, and when I talked, it would be funny. And I don't know how I did it. That was just like a natural brain thing. I don't know. I'm dyslexic, so I wrote it off to that. Well, I'm dyslexic. That's what it does. My brain.
Hmm.
If I get up and talk, I'm funny. If I try to write it out, not so much. So, but my learning curve was like really steep. And after about a couple of months, I was opening for Woody Allen. I had Woody Allen's manager. I was touring. I was opening for Miles Davis and the Kingston Trio. And I was in show business. I was touring. I was doing, opening for I was playing for John F. Kennedy.
Oh
He
wow.
came. I was playing the cellar door opening for Miles Davis in Washington D.C. That's a big club well, it was when I was young. And we got the nightclub got an official statement from the government, I guess from the FBI or something, that John F. Kennedy and his wife, Jackie and his brother, and of course his guards, his bodyguard, were
I
going to
bet.
come
Yeah.
to a show. They were going to come to a show during the way. They wouldn't say when because people would find out. So they just said, John F. Kennedy is going to come to the show sometime in the 2 week that you're booked here for. So we didn't know, and they wouldn't tell us when or how or why. And then one day I came off the stage. I did pretty good, packed Saturday night, the last show, Saturday night. And I came off the stage. I did a really good show. And somebody said, they're here. They're here. Yeah. And then I saw in the back all the bodyguards and the table. And yeah, they were back there. They had seen my show, and now they're waiting for Miles to come on, and he played. Then afterwards, Miles came out and they waited around, and I just walked out, stayed, watched his show, and stayed. I kind of hid in a stairwell that went up to the second tier. It was a nightclub where you can have dinner and watch above
Hmm.
everybody's head, kind of.
Sure, sure.
So I just sat in the stairwell and I waited, and there they were: John F. Kennedy, Jackie Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, his wife, another political couple, and the bodyguards, and they just gathered in a little clique in this empty nightclub. And then Miles came out, and he got in the center. They surrounded him. I mean, just naturally, they just gathered around him.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
couldn't see him. There was just this group around him. I could see the top of his head. He's not a very tall guy. And I did this thing in my act where he used to watch my show. He wanted me to tour with him. I mean, he liked me. I had an audition for him. He came the night that he opened, he watched my show to see whether he wanted me to be the opening comedian for the rest of the 2 weeks. So after the first night of his opening, the owner of the club came over to me and he said, well, you made the cut. I go, what was that all about? He said, no, Miles was going to fire you if you weren't funny enough. He doesn't want a bad comedian opening for him, but he liked you. So you got the gig for the rest of his stay here. So, and one of the things I did a thing about cops and in New York, they have Vespa motorcycle ticket cops. They
Hmm.
just ride on
Hmm.
Vespas and they write tickets. That's the only. So I was making the convergence between motor scooter cops and Hell's Angels. That Hell's Angels were motor scooter cops that made it. And I was doing that kind of stuff. So he's got this group of John F. Kennedy and all the Kennedys and the bodyguards around him. And I'm sitting in the stairwell, kind of watching this, going, wow, man, that's the president of the United States. And I see Miles Davis stand up on it, kind of like his tiptoes. He raises above and he looks at me and he goes, he goes back down. That's a
Oh,
cool guy, man.
oh
That's
yeah.
really, yeah. I said, thank you. It's just a little hello, Larry.
Well,
Thank you.
Larry, one thing that I love about you is that you're truly a showman. And as you mentioned, you're a comedian, but you're also this amazingly talented actor. And one of my all-time favorite movies till this day is Escape from Alcatraz,
Oh, yeah.
the story about the Alcatraz prison escape of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. I thoroughly remember watching this as a kid with my brothers and just being so hooked to what I was watching. Your character of Charlie Botts is truly one of the standouts of the film. So let's deep dive into all things Escape from Alcatraz. Such a great movie led by the great Clint Eastwood and directed by Don Siegel. How did you originally get involved with this film?
That was interesting. That was my first major film. I was in the committee in Second City. I was an improviser. We were up in San Francisco. I was in Chicago. We cut away, a couple, six of us went to San Francisco. We were there for like, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 years before. Well, I was there for 10 years in San Francisco improvising. But around the 5 or 6 or 7th years, we were very popular. We were crowded. We were just like Second City in Chicago. It was the committee. And what would happen was we were a 35 round trip ticket flight from LA to San Francisco and back, round trip, $35.
Wow.
So it was very easy for casting directors. They would hear about this great show like Second City in Chicago up in San Francisco for $35. So they would fly up, these casting directors, green light people, managers, agents. They'd fly up, they'd watch a show, maybe bring their girlfriend, their family, and then fly back. And then we would get a call saying, hey, we'd like you in the sitcom. So all of us were being shipped down for like one-offs, just a week down there to either rehearse
Hmm.
or one day to do a sitcom. Nothing major, but it was extra work. I mean, we were employed in San Francisco, and we'd fly down for a week. And in improv, you can be replaced really easy because it's improv. There's nothing written.
Hmm.
So, it's like if this was an improv show and you had to go to LA to be in a show, I could replace you, or somebody else could replace you. Very simple. And they would improvise. Then when you come back, all your jokes would be changed because they would do their own improvisation. So you would either have to do it the way your replacement did it, or you would try to
Right.
use some of their jokes and some of your jokes. So it'd be like, a melange
A little
of
jumbled up there. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
it's great. It wasn't a challenge. It was fun to go back and see what happened to your amazing genius improv that somebody else replaced. Or they just wouldn't do your piece until you got back.
That's true.
So that's what happened with me. I got a call from, come on. How how did that happen? The audition. I think I was down there already. Yes, I was living. I don't think I was. But anyway, I was down there, and the audition was really weird. I must have been down there because I got a call from my agent saying, "Go down there, audition." And I thought it was, a big thing. It was, Clint Eastwood. He said it was a big movie. It was a major movie.
Yeah.
He's talking big budget, ten pole movie. Okay, fine. But we were very happy up there. I wasn't impressed with Hollywood at all. I called Hollywood, oh, you're going down to face act. Everybody went, ooh, close up, ooh, close. So I call them face actors. I didn't cotton to it. But I went down because it was Clint Eastwood, and it was just an interview, basically. And the story is that I had a rush to get down there. So I guess I was living down there because he said, get down there now. They're closing the audition in an hour. And my first thought was, oh, I'm being replaced. When they tell you get down there right away, they're closing, they need somebody right away. That means somebody got fired. Time is money. You got to get down there. You're probably going to work the next day if you make the audition. So I rushed down there, and it's all the way out in the valley. That's a 45-minute drive, lead footing it all the way. Ooh. And then they said, what's the part? And they said, we don't know. They'll tell you when you get there. That's not a good thing, because that means that my agent has information that the people when I get there don't have. It's all upper echelon people talking. Get Larry down here, right? We need a replacement right away. Get him down here right away. Don't worry about it. Blah, blah, blah. And then you get down there, and these people, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't, they didn't get the signal. So when I got there, nobody knew. What are you here for? I don't know. It's a part. And in Escape from Alcatraz. Well, yeah, but there was nobody else there.
Hmm.
Nobody. I was the only person. So okay, I'm replacing somebody, and I have an attitude about that. Why didn't they call me in the first place? Why am I replacing somebody? If you're calling me to replace somebody, why didn't you call me to do it in the first place? That's so I wasn't up for it. already, you don't like me, I don't like you. That's my attitude. So I went in with a chip on my shoulder, you know. And and then when I asked the secretary, I said, "Isn't there any sides? Anything? You don't know what part? Nothing?" She said, "No. All we have is a script. You want the script?" So I said, "Yeah, but that's 98 pages. I don't know what part is in. I can't read 98 pages. I'm sitting here in the audition department. I'm going to go in a couple of minutes. I can't."
Right,
So she said,
right.
"I'm sorry, I can't help you." So the whole thing was going down the drain, man.
Yeah, not after the greatest
I
start,
want to
right?
go home. It's
Yeah.
not working out, man. And then, so I'm sitting there with the script on my lap. I'm not even going to try to read it. I don't know what part I'm. So I'm sitting there, and just as I sit down and I'm just, thing in my lap, the door opens, to the audition thing. And this nice lady, gray-haired lady, she peeks around, "Are you Larry Hankin?" "Yeah." "Are you ready?" And I just, my mind just, no, I'm not ready. But that's what was going on in here.
Right, right.
You just want to, yes, yes, that's what came out. Yes, I'm ready, because it was ridiculous. You know, I figured I'm not going to get it. Let's just get this over with. Yeah, I'm ready. So I come in, and there's only two people in, and my agent said, Clint Eastwood is going to be there. That was the other reason. I just wanted to meet Clint Eastwood. And he's going to be at the audition. You're going to audition with Clint Eastwood. And I'm going, wow, and I get in the room, and there's just Don Siegel. I didn't know who Don Siegel was. Now it turns out he's like a major mover shaker of the, old Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
Once I got working with him, I saw, oh my God, this guy is amazing. But walking into the room, I see this gray-haired guy, and then my hair wasn't gray at the time. I was a young man. I thought, oh, it's an old guy. Oh, gee, this is going to go down the toilet. Yeah. So he says, and so I sit down. So there's three chairs, like facing, boom, boom, and it's an empty room. So I sit down in the only chair, and they're sitting there. And he says, the first thing out of his mouth, Don Siegel's mouth, is, "Okay, hi, Larry. So what are you here for?" And I just want to shout, "I don't know." I have an attitude problem. So I just cooled it, and I said, "I don't know," but he understood. I mean, he read that I was bothered. He read that right away. My
Hmm.
body language and everything. I said, "I don't know. They told me that I would be here." See, I don't have a mask. Maybe that's why I'm a good actor. I don't know. I just can't hide how I feel. So he said, "Well," and he saw this. I had the script. I had the script in my lap, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what." Oh, they started to discuss this in front of me. That's another no-no that I hate. Well, what do we have for him? Well, I don't know. The only two things that are open are the guard and Charlie Batch. "Oh, really?" Well, then he looks at me like I wasn't there, and all of a sudden I'm there. "You want to do the guard, Larry?" Uh, I don't know. And I mean, now I'm just full out with my attitude. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what guard does. I mean, to me, that was a stupid question, man. What part do I want? I haven't even read the script. So he goes, well, and she says, "Well, forget the guard." She says, "This is a big casting lady. It's a Clint Eastwood movie, and it's Don
Right. Yeah.
Siegel." And she says, "Well, he can't do the guard." "Why not?" "Well, we can't. He was fired yesterday." I go, aha, he was fired yesterday.
There you
That's
go.
why I'm here. That's why I get down in an hour. She says, "He was fired yesterday, but we've already replaced him." So he goes, "Yeah. Well, I don't know, Larry, I don't think you can do the guard." Now I haven't even said I want to do the guard. Now he says, "I don't think you can do the guard. Do you?" And she says, "And anyway, the guard beats up Clint Eastwood." And she says, "I don't think he can beat up Clint Eastwood." So then Don Siegel says to me, Larry, do you think you can beat up Clint Eastwood? And I go, no. He said, I didn't think so either. Okay, what do you have? What else you got? And she says, Charlie Butts. He says, you want to do Charlie Butts? And I go, I don't know. And that's the way I said, I don't know. I'm getting fed up and I just want to get out of there. And I think I've had years to think about this. I think that's exactly why he hired me, was because of my honest attitude in the room. I just couldn't hide my my impatience with
Right.
this whole business. I mean, you could
Hmm.
see that because he had a smile on his face the whole time. And no matter what I said or how I shifted in my chair and, oh, damn it. And he would just laugh. He would just kind of smile and go, all right, I tell you what, um, let's try. He says, you want to try Charlie Butts? And I go, okay, let's just try it because I wanted to get out of it. He says, all right, turn to page 98. So 75, page 75. He says, all right, just one. Well, let's just read one page. I'm going to read with you. Okay. Yeah, fine. You want to take a minute to go outside and go over it? No, let's just do this now. And he just smiled and he said, okay, all right. You read Charlie and I'll read whatever the other. Blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, 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 blah. Okay, good. All right, you got Charlie. Fine. And I just sat there and they don't tell you that. I don't know if you've ever auditioned for anything, but
Not for a
in
movie, but yeah,
Hollywood,
I know the thing. Yeah.
they
Hmm.
do not tell you. And I had auditioned for a lot of sitcoms and stuff and voiceovers and everything flying down there just for a one-off one day. So I knew they don't tell you, and other actors tell you the same thing. No, they don't tell you. And he just told me. So he said, I sat there silent, and he goes, "You don't believe me, do you?" I said, "No, no, I don't." And he goes, "Okay. I tell you what, why don't you go home and sit by the phone and see what happens and get out of here?" And he still had that smirk on his face, like get out of here. Like it wasn't rude. He was just saying, "Why don't you go home and sit by the phone and see what happens?" I said, "Okay, that's it." He said, "That's it. Bye." And I just got up and walked out. I mean, with still with the chip on my shoulder. I thought, this guy fucking. And I went home and the phone rang and he says, "You got it." I go, "What the hell?" Okay. Now, the part was that I read, and finally they sent me the whole thing, and was a small part. It was a very small part, and I liked it because I didn't have to memorize a lot, and yet my scenes were always with Clint Eastwood. So it was a perfect part. Whatever I did in the audition, I still couldn't repeat. I mean, I was being very honestly, very drug about the whole thing. And he read that and still he hired me. So I didn't know why I was there. And it turned out that my attitude was so naive about what was going on. What he read was the naivete of this guy, this me, didn't know how auditions work or how he ran auditions or how to react to how important roles are run. I mean, he was used to doing this all the time. Hey, what do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. It was a conversation, which is the best
Right.
kind of audition. He just wants to see where you're at and blah, blah, blah. So
Hmm.
the audition is a very small part of the discussion. But he liked my naivete. You don't know how Hollywood runs at all, do you, kid? And that's what he wanted for Clint Eastwood. And why I say that to you now is when we were shooting the movie, I was there for 3 months. A small part doesn't take 3 months to do. But
Yeah.
he wanted me always there. And I always showed up, even when I didn't, we were on Alcatraz Island. You had to take a boat to get there every morning at 7:30 a.m. That means you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every morning. And I had to be in costume and I would get on the boat or dress when I got there, whatever. But there was only one boat. There was 10 boats, but they all left, 200 extras. 7:30. And if you missed that boat, the only other boat or if you missed those boats. The only other boat was one boat at at 12 in the afternoon for the
Wow.
CEOs. So if you were late and you were going to shoot and you missed the 10 boats, if they had to send that one boat just for you, you were going to pay in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It was an expense. You're holding up production. You're drag on the whole thing, and you just pay an attitude. It was Clint Eastwood's crew. They didn't give up about you. They would give you attitude. The crew would give you attitude if you were late. I mean, it was just a force of nature that you were going
Oh yeah.
into. They were all together. Don Siegel and Clint had done, many movies together before. So they were on the same page. And it was Clint Eastwood's crew. So they were on the same page. So if you came in late or you made them change something, or he won't be here for another hour, let's shoot another scene. They had to change everything while
Yeah.
you were there. They gave you attitude, man. They made it very hard for you to do your work. They would be slow, or they would be too fast, or whatever. So that's what was going on until I figured out that my naivete was what Charlie Butts was all about. And I suddenly realized the genius of what Don Siegel had done. He wasn't casting me as an actor, he was casting me,
Yeah.
Larry Hankin. That's the kid up there. That's me. And I finally, it came into my brain. Oh, because he kept on putting me on. For 3 months, the crew and Don Siegel and Clint Eastwood put me on every day, something else, until I finally woke up and got really angry, with the attitude I had when I had the discussion with Don Siegel. It finally came up to the production. And I just got angry. I'll tell you what it was, but it cleared the smoke. Everything was fine after that. I noticed that Clint Eastwood and Don Siegel were bonded. They were movie makers together.
Mm-hmm.
They had done enough movies where very little talk between them with just signals. But each time, and my scenes were always with Clint Eastwood. So there was two things that Don Siegel did. I always showed up in costume. I would get on the boat. If I wasn't shooting that day, I'd get on the boat and I would change. I'd get into costume just to watch, because it did dawn on me. Clint Eastwood and Don Siegel should not be ignored. They were movie makers and I wanted to make movies. And so I was there I thought, this is my school. I'm going to school for 3 months here. This is going to be incredible. It's a high budget movie. Clint Eastwood, Don Siegel. I'm going to learn directing. I'm going to learn acting. I'm going to learn how it works. So I was always there. And Don Siegel went for it. So I always was around the camera watching him. I would ask him questions. And our relationship was like a grandson and a grandfather. I mean, he put me on, but he always answered my question, never got angry at me. He would just say, well, Larry, blah, blah, blah. Or he would put me on. I'd say, well, why are you doing it this way? Why did you put the camera here? And he would say, well, Larry, I don't know. I think I'm going to get fired over this one. He would just, and I'd say, oh, okay, I'm just interrupting his train of thought. So, he was always, or he would do the other thing. He would go, okay, I wasn't in this, like I would just be watching, and he'd say, Larry, get in the cell here. I said, well, just get in the cell here. Well, what am I doing? I don't care. Just get in here. Well, why am I in the shot? He said, because they're facing each other. I had, what's his name? The warden and Clint are talking. So I'm doing a close up, nose to nose. And there's a big hole here. We're shooting into a cell. I need
Yeah.
somebody in. Get in there. Get in there. And he would do this the entire movie. So my part was getting bigger and bigger just by me showing up. And he would say, get in that scene, or just walk across. Or when Clint was marching into lunch, he'd say, Larry, get in line, get behind Clint. So he was always marrying me to Clint. So he was setting up the fact that this was his sidekick, or, or this naive guy was hanging
Yeah.
around with his protector. So he was setting up something that wasn't in the script with me as an extra. And I got the fact that, wow, I'm being put in this movie over and over again just by showing up. And so
Hmm.
I saw that I started to get into how Don Siegel made movies. And then one day, another thing I noticed was that after each Clint Eastwood scene where I was in, Don Siegel would come up to him and he'd say, "How is that for you, Clint?" I mean, every time, after every shot, he would leave the camera, come up and say, "How's that for you, Clint?" And Clint would say, "That's fine. Let's move on." And then they would move on. So it was like they were both kind of directing, one from the actor's point of view and one from the director's. But one time, because I was getting, again, my attitude, I was getting PO'd because they would never even look at me when that happened. They would, if I was standing here, you know, Don Siegel would come up and talk to Clint here. They would never look over. How's that for you, Clint? Well, maybe I'd like to do maybe one more. I don't think in 3 months he maybe said that once. He would say, "That's okay for me." Or Don Siegel would say, "How is that for you?" And Clint would say, "Why are we doing this again?" Clint only wanted to do one shot. If you didn't get it, you had to give him a reason. Don Siegel, the director, had to give Clint a reason. Now, if the reason was righteous, and it always was, he'd say, "Well, the camera, fell off the dolly. We have to do it again." Clint would say, "Okay, fine, let's do it again." As long as the reason was fine, then he was fine. I mean, he wasn't crazy. He just wanted to know why. He was saving his energy, whatever. The camera. So that was cool. So one time, but they never would even look at me or say, "What do you think, Larry?" Nothing. And I was getting pissed off, man, because like a month and a half of this going. And so finally, one time he said, "How's that for you, Clint?" And Clint said, "Fine, let's move on." And I said, "I'd like to do it again. I think I can do it better." I just spoke my
Mm,
piece. Now, I'd like to
yeah.
do it again. I think I can do it better. And Clint said, "Yeah, well, I can't." And he walked away. So the crew just broke up, and Don Siegel walked away with him. So I'm left alone on the set, and all of a sudden everybody disappeared, and the crew is laughing like hell, which made me kind of angry, as you might
Well,
well imagine. But I was there with mud on my face or egg on my face or whatever,
mhm.
bullshit on my face.
Well, speaking about
So
Clint Eastwood, Larry, like what was
excuse me?
your overall, speaking about Clint Eastwood, now that we're on the topic of it, what was your overall experience in working with this mega movie star at the time? As you mentioned, like he had this well-oiled machine with Don where they're making movies together, they have their own crew, they know exactly what they want. So what was your personal experience with getting to know Clint on set and actually working with him?
Well, since I am very naive by nature and by choice, I don't mind being wrong. It doesn't bother me at all. I've been wrong all my life. It doesn't, it affects me for a little while, and then you go on with your life. I mean, who cares? So that's one reason that both Don Siegel and Clint Eastwood saw that um, that my naivete, I honored it. I didn't back away from it. I didn't try to hide it or try to be macho or anything like that. If I was naive,
Sure.
I was
You
naive. I
embraced it,
trusted
right? Yeah.
myself.
Hmm.
And so one of the things is I hang around with Don Siegel, and my relationship was grandfather to grandson. That's how I related to him. And that's how
Sure.
he related to me. He was very friendly, but I didn't know much. So he tried to teach me either by example or by putting me on. Like, hey,
Hmm.
kid, wake up. We're putting you on. Clint Eastwood was, he saw that I was trying to be his friend. In other words, I knew that these guys had knowledge that I needed, whatever it was. I didn't know what kind of knowledge. I just knew if you hang around long enough, you're going to learn stuff, Larry.
Yeah.
So Clint Eastwood, I hung around with him when I wasn't hanging around with Don Siegel. I didn't ask him questions. I just followed him around like a puppy. Just I had lunch with him. Clint didn't have lunch alone. He always ate with the extras, always. And he entertained them because they, looked at Clint like I looked at Clint, oh, wow, man. So they would always ask him questions, hey, what was it like making that movie? And hey, what was it like? And what was it like? And did you think this? And he would, well, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So he was always Clint Eastwood. He was just this guy, man. And one of the things he entertained the guys with, which I thought was just really great, was Clint Eastwood is what was that that Dustin Hoffman was he could count things. He
Ah, I
you
know where
know
you're getting at.
he knew
It's
things, but he was
name is
crazy.
escaping. The
I,
name is escaping my mind, but I know which movie you're talking about.
he
Yeah.
had that thing. Okay, well, Don Siegel with Lear's limericks. You know what Lear's limericks are? There
No.
once was a man from there once was a man from St. Ives uh, who had 7 wives, kids, cats, Saxon wives. How many? Blah blah blah. That went to St. Ives. They were just little poems. Generally, they were dirty in some childish way, like
Hmm.
poop and stuff like that.
Sure.
But there's thousands of them, and this was in like the 1800s or 1900s. It was a reader book where it was just these poems, a whole book of it's called Lear's Limericks, and they were just da 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 da. Boom, there's limericks. Well, and they always had this triple rhyme, two rhymes, two rhymes, and then the third rhyme for the first two.
Hmm.
Always. Well, when they found out that he was, well, it starts with an S, I don't know, about Liz limericks, they try to test him every lunch hour. He would eat with them, and I found out what that name, but he was never stumped. In 3 months of 200 extras quizzing him almost every lunchtime, he never was stumped by, do you know one about roses? Do you know one about frogs? And you go, yeah. Now, either he was making them up or he had the entire, repertoire of Lear's limericks memorized, but he was never stumped. I just sit there, at lunchtime. I even threw in, a couple of, do you know one about lions? Just like roll. You wouldn't even think. You would just go, oh, lions. Yeah, sure. Boop, 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 boop. He just that was that. So he saw Clint saw that I was always at lunch. I joined in with the extras about asking him questions, or I just hang. He was. There's a scene where he and I are in the courtyard. We're there and we're sitting together and we're just talking. And
Yep.
everybody wants me to sign that picture. It's a picture of me and Clint sitting. We're both almost sitting in the exact same position, body wise. We're what do you call it? It's called
Parallel.
when you sit, when you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden you see you're mirroring the other person, where if they
Like,
cross their arms,
sure, sure. Like you're parallel to them in many ways. Yeah. Hmm.
so we were mirroring, and then somebody took a picture of that, and that's the picture that I always autograph.
Nice.
Okay, well, Clint saw that. I mean, he reads body language too. So that picture kind of defined our relationship. It was a silent body language thing, more for me than him. I mean, he was just always Clint Eastwood. I was just sucking up to him. I mean, just very silent ways. I just wanted, but I did learn about acting in a very cool and very close way. I mean, I watched how he, uh, acted with the warden, and he did it like he always bought what do you call it? Curling on curling weight.
Dumbbells, yeah, dumbbells, right? Hmm.
They're really heavy. Like I don't know. Can't remember, but like 50 pounds sounds really heavy. That's what he was doing. I mean, it took, I had to go like that to lift one up. But he took two of them, these, yeah, dumbbells, and he put them by the camera. And he would put them down, and then he would watch how, setting up. And then just as soon as he saw about 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes before, okay, Clint, we're ready for you, he would pump up. He would pick up and he
Yeah,
would work
common
out
thing actors do. Yeah.
and he'd pump up before every scene. He would, pick up his dumbbells and like that. And then he'd go, he said, okay, we're ready for you, Clint. And he would put them down. And I thought, well, that's a weird way to prepare. And I've seen, other famous actors, how they prepare. Some just like to talk about other things. They don't want to talk. They don't want to focus on their
Right.
scene. They talk about other things, which blew my mind because I got to, get quiet and shut my mind down. I got ADHD. So I got to, and the first time Clint Eastwood ever saw me, I was sitting in Charlie Butts's cell trying to be quiet. The first day that I got there, he said, where's Charlie Butts' cell? So they took me his cell where they were going to shoot. And I just sat there very quietly, trying to shut my mind off and just be quiet. And my head was down like this. I think I was cutting out pictures to paste on the wall, prisoners, uh,
Hmm.
National Geographic naked women,
Yeah,
natives from Africa, or what do you call it? Magazine pinups.
sure,
I'm doing
sure.
that, being very quiet, trying to be a prisoner. And I look up and there's Clint Eastwood standing out. The first day that I was there, it is my first meeting with Clint Eastwood was I look up and there he is outside the cell. I don't know how long he'd been standing there and just staring at me. And I go, oh, hi. And he just looked at me and he sees me cutting out. You a method actor? No. Good. I don't like method actors. Just walked away.
Sounds like Clint Eastwood. All right.
Whoa. I thought, oh my God, this is my first meeting with him and already he's pissed off at me. So I also had to make up ground. That was another thing. Oh God, what does he think? And then I found out, maybe he knew this, maybe he didn't, but the set designer came up to me after I had my walls, this is
All
my
plastered. Yeah.
space, my
Hmm.
prisoner thing. He said, what the hell do you think you're doing? He said, oh, this is Charlie Butts' cell. I just, put it. Alcatraz doesn't allow anything on any walls. Take them down. All right, now I got to set design.
Well,
Clint
hey,
just went,
we're on the
well,
topic of speaking about
yeah,
the
I mean,
topic of
just,
Alcatraz.
I mean, the audition, meeting Clint Eastwood, the set designer. I mean, I just started off on the wrong foot. But that's what they all kind of sensed, even the crew. So, this guy has no idea what's going on, man. And I didn't. I really didn't. And I thank God I admitted it to me. I mean, I just went with it until finally when this thing happened with Clint Eastwood, and I said, I think I'd like to do it again. I can do it better. And then 2 weeks later, I was up at night trying to figure out how to get out of the barrel because the crew saw that
Hmm.
Clint Eastwood walked away and they laughed. And I was fucked, man. They wouldn't let up. If you get a movie crew not on your side, it's a death knell, man. They will not let up, man.
Hmm.
They don't, they're cruel. They really are. They'd hide stuff from you. They put, It was just, they would laugh behind your back. They'd move stuff. They tell you things that weren't true. I think you're up. You better go. No, no. So the next 2 weeks later, Don Siegel comes up, says to Clint, "Well, how's that for you, Clint?" Well, I mean, yeah. So he said, "How is that for you, Clint?" And Clint said, um, and he didn't even know that he was repeating exactly what I said 2 weeks ago. He didn't realize that at all. He said, um, "I'd like to do it again. I think I can do it better." And I said, "Well, I can't." And I walked away. So, fuck you all. And I walked away and I kept on walking and I said, "I'm fired and I don't care." I mean, that's ADHD, dyslexia, attitude. I was just fed up. So I kept on
Mhm.
walking. And just as I was about to leave, I got to this door down there and well, I was on the tier. So I had to walk all the way down the tier to the door at the end. So just as I got there, that was about like, I don't know, I'd say about a 45-second to a minute walk away. And it's silent. And I
Right.
wouldn't turn around. And I just kept on cursing to myself, "Come on, come on. I don't have to take this anymore." And finally, just as I got to the door, Clint says, "Hey, Larry, come on back, man." I mean, just so friendly. So, "Hey,
Well, hey,
Larry, come
on the
on.
top.
We're just kidding around, man. What do you?" And then the crew laughed too. So he
Mhm.
came back. He said, "Hey, don't worry about it, man. I was kidding." He was referring to. I mean, he knew why I walked
Right,
away.
what you were referring to, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
he said, "Don't worry about it, man. Just let it roll off your back. Yeah, it's cool, cool." But the crew stopped. They didn't bother me at all after that. And that's when Clint and I kind of bonded as, okay, you're going to follow me around and you want to be my friend, we're friends. And he recommended me for another movie, so but that's what they were pushing for. I
Mhm.
mean, and then finally they wanted to break this naivete thing that I had going. They just wanted, kid, this is, don't take it so serious, man. This is, we all
Yeah.
know what we're doing. Have fun,
Mhm.
just stop it. And I did, and so the next month and a half, so I was at a month and a half. So the rest of the time, man, everybody got along great. I was now a member,
Nice, nice.
and then it went
Well,
fine. And that was, then other things happened, but that was just making movies. After that, it was
mhm.
fine.
One of the great things about this movie is that it continues to be discovered and rediscovered now, especially with something like streaming. And now people are watching this in droves in Netflix, and it's a big movie on there as well. And a movie that was
Is it
made
really?
40, yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah, here in Canada, you can watch it on Netflix. And I think that's great because so many people are watching this for the first time and they're just falling in love with it. Now, in one word, Larry, if I had to ask you, as someone who was on Alcatraz shooting this film, do you think this yes or no answer? Do you think Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers made it out okay? Yes or no? That's all I want.
The question.
It's
That is the question. Okay. One word answer. Do I think they made it or not? Right?
mhm. Yeah,
Are you talking about just
all
Frank? All three?
all three.
I have had this discussion. No, that's my answer. No. However, I got to tell you, there's a book called Escaping Alcatraz, which is the real story of Alcatraz. It's a 500-page book. I met the author and we discussed this at length. The author of that book, Michael Esslinger. Now, let me tell you something about the movie. You have my answer, no. Michael Esslinger says yes, because I asked him that question. He wrote the book after the movie came out. Let me tell you something about the movie and the book. Alcatraz Island right now is a national monument. So
Hmm.
that's guarded by the government. There is a, when you land, so it's a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
There's a tourist thing there that when you pull in, you go through a tourist thing and they take you on tours. Um, there, there's a room where they sell the book, The Making of Alcatraz, and they have other tchotchkes, other souvenirs.
Sure.
They
Sure.
have a
Yeah.
souvenir room. One of the things that they have on a streaming around that just keeps repeating is the movie Escape from Alcatraz. It's a part of a national monument presentation that, as long as Alcatraz is a government monument, that movie is part of the monument, Escape from Alcatraz.
Right.
So I'm in that movie. That's one of the things that I carry with me. Wow, man. The movie, one of the movies that I'm in, and plays is now part of a national monument. That just blows my mind. But everybody talks about it now. Michael Esslinger, I asked him why he thought that they escaped, and he said because of certain clues. Because he went through FBI dossiers, he went through all kinds of research. I mean, to do this book, I have the book, and I would go through it. It's a hard read for somebody who has ADHD and dyslexia, but it's just packed with facts. And one of the facts is that the Anglin brothers family say that they made it to South America and they have letters from them, the two Anglin brothers.
I read about that. Yeah, that there's postcards that are being sent to them from, I believe, like Brazil or Argentina. There's a documentary on that as well. Yeah.
So that's why he says yes. Why I say no is because of two things. Now, maybe one of them drowned. Two things. One is a steamship that went out. Well, okay. Here's the tide on the night that they left. We know exactly what time they left. It was 10 p.m. They just back timed everything to they had to leave then because
Sure. Yeah. Hmm.
so the tide at that point was going out when they launched their raft, this made raft. They found the raft deflated on a beach outside of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I lived in San Francisco for 10 years, and I used to cross that bridge almost every night on a motorcycle going back to where I lived,
Hmm.
the committee. So I know the currents, and late at night, the wind is amazing late at night, even in the summer when it's calm. The wind that high up going through a very small channel, a funnel, and the tide is amazing. So if you launch anything going from the island, which is in the center, right before you get to the bridge, that rip tide is going through because of the small, deep channel. If you start to go this way, you're going this way. You
Hmm.
will be swept out. So if you're just paddling and kicking on a raft that, they weren't in a raft, they were
They're
on
like
or
holding on to it. Yeah.
holding
And they're
on
like
to
kind
it
of
and
floating
kicking,
on it. Yeah.
they would have been swept out. And the raft was punctured. It was broken, not stabbed. It was the glue.
Hmm.
So they think that they drowned and were swept out to sea. And a steamer was going out and saw a dead body that
Float by. Yeah.
morning or that night, where the body was dressed in the blue uniform of the convicts, but they couldn't stop, so they just kept on going. It was a steamer. It wasn't a small boat. It was a tanker. So, and also they said there's no way that the tide could have landed them where they thought they wanted to land, uh,
Right.
on the Sausalito side.
Yeah.
You know. So it's never been proven either way. And I think the case is still open.
You know
So
what?
there's another.
It's one of the all-time great mysteries, but it made for a great movie, and that's something that you're a part of, and something that is still so, I feel
It's
like,
iconic,
current.
but the weird thing is, I
It
was a young
is.
man. It's the best, I believe it's the best piece of acting I've ever done, which was the first movie I was ever in when I was like 32 or something like that. I don't know, 29, God knows how old I was. I mean, I could figure it out, but I was a young man,
Right.
and in all the years, I mean, the only thing that's even come close that I think is to Old Joe is about the
Yeah,
only
go on.
thing where
It's
and then I
Breaking
was
Bad,
back.
correct?
I did a backstory and I did act some acting, but in Escape from Alcatraz, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just was
Yeah.
me, you know, and that's exactly what he wanted.
Hmm.
So it kind of depresses me if you could, that I didn't learn anything, or that's as much as I moved from being Charlie Butts to Old Joe, and all the rest was like chuffa. It was like a learning process. But
Yeah.
but to my fans, each one is a little, nice piece of acting that they like, and so great. I just did the best I could. You move on. I don't,
Hmm.
I don't look back. I don't watch. Well, I watch it for the first time and make a judgment, and then go on.
Yeah.
I go see the
Yeah.
movie that I was in, say, well, I could do better, or oh, that's really great, or oh, that's okay. And then some fan will come up and say, hey, I loved you in that. And they go, oh, thank you. All right. So I fooled them. Ha ha. That's all.
Well, hey, for everyone listening who hasn't checked out Escape from Alcatraz, I highly, highly recommend it. It's one of the all-time great prison movies, and just the natural, amazing acting and the overall experience, just from talking to you, that you had on that film and working alongside with
Oh, it's very,
Clint and Don. Yeah, it sounds like a very great experience. So, as we wrap up with the great Larry Hankin, it is now time for a segment I call the final act. Larry, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid fire questions
oh,
about
cool.
your likes and your dislikes. I just want the first thing
Okay.
that comes to your mind. Movies or TV shows?
Well, that's hard to. I mean, movies, but if it's something that I do, I only do videos because I can't afford movies. They're so expensive. So movies to watch, but to do it, the cheapest one is TVs.
All right.
So it
Would you
depends.
rather okay. Would you rather watch a movie at home or in a movie theater?
Wow, a movie I would rather watch in a movie theater.
All right. Favorite movie?
Man bites dog.
Favorite TV show?
Mary Hartman. Mary Hartman.
Summer or fall?
Summer.
Does
Huh?
pineapple belong on pizza?
Excuse me.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No.
Favorite role you have played?
Charlie Butts.
When was the last time you spoke to Clint Eastwood?
In a restaurant many, many years ago. Many,
All
many
right.
years after Escape from
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz.
All right. And lastly, describe your journey in the world of the creative arts in one word.
Tenacious.
And Larry, you killed it at that. So Larry, where can we find you online?
RealLarryHankin.com. All my movies, not the movies I'm in, but the movies I make and
Mhm.
produce and direct. And I'm in. And my paintings, there's 40 of them. There's t-shirts, the RealLarryHankin.com. Don't go to LarryHankin.com. That's been kidnapped and they're holding it for ransom and I won't pay it. So the real LarryHankin.com. And I'm coming out with a book. I have two books out. The the Loopholes Dossier. It's a satire, book of satire stories. And the new one is my autobiography, telling stories about all the movies I've been in. and it's pretty
Awesome.
cool.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And thank you for your contributions to the creative arts. Escape from Alcatraz is one of my all time favorite movies, and you
Oh,
play a big part in creating that love that I have for it. I truly wish you all the best, and I really appreciate you being on the show today.
thank you for having me.